All right, and welcome back into the Pulse with Willie and Al. Well, thank you for tuning into our Achilles heel episode. How are you doing today, Al?
I'm doing great, Willie. I'm doing great. First full weekend of football, and boy, what a weekend it was!
Oh man,
Yeehaw!
absolutely.
I, whew, we got to get right into it. Just about an hour ago, we found out Aaron Rodgers torn Achilles heel, and as somebody on this program, I'm not going to name names. Spoiler alert: it was me. Who said that the Jets were going to go to the Super Bowl this year? Not good. It's not good.
Yeah, definitely.
Uh,
There goes your Super Bowl hopes right there, right, Al?
Boy, not great. Uh, but Shane, what did you think when you heard the news that Rodgers tore his Achilles?
I'll tell you, man. I was pretty devastated. Just to be honest, I obviously living in Turkey and stuff. I couldn't watch the game live, but to wake up to multiple text messages from friends just saying like, "Hey, by the way, Rogers is done," and I'm like, "How do you know?" And they're just, it was really crushing to see that. Um, First thoughts that I had about it was like, man, I can't wait to see what Mike Greenberg looks like in the morning because I just know, what a passionate Jets fan he is, and like to have to wake up and hear about that, it was not a fun thing to go through. I think it's bad for the
Yeah.
team, bad for the fans, bad for the NFL, and obviously very bad for him as well.
Yeah, the crowd when they announced all the players last night, that I have never seen that stadium so electric.
Hmm.
Like, everybody was on their feet. Like, it was almost the anniversary of 9/11. There was just a lot going on, a lot for the city, and the city just had all these big hopes for the Jets, and for it to honestly be gone in 4 plays is just rough. Like, as a Patriots fan, like I don't love the Jets, but like you actually feel bad for the Jets fans because they were all in. Everybody was all in. A lot of people had them as a sleeper Super Bowl pick to make the Super Bowl, and that's all gone.
Right. And
So it's tough.
I think when you start to look at it too, like this, the emotional toll that this takes on this team in particular, because of this team being tailor made for this dude. I mean, he, okay, so we know Aaron Rodgers beforehand when he was in Green Bay and kind of how he forged his exit out of there, right? And,
Yeah.
he lands in the city he wants to be in. New York gives up a boatload to get him and stuff. It's just when I look at that, all of the things that we had in terms of expectations for how he was going to be when he got to New York, I think he exceeded those, right? Like you see him out at the games together. He's, going through definitely in practice, like bringing guys through training camp, taking guys under his wing. You see him in the preseason there calling plays for Wilson, right? Like, just it's just sad because the potency of this team with him on it made them a Super Bowl contender. And now I just don't see them. I see them as having a chance because their running game is good. They've got two great backs there, and Brees Hall and Dalvin Cook, but
Yeah.
and great defense. But just without him, it just doesn't feel right.
Yeah, and last night's game too, like Zach Wilson came in. He's been taking all the second team reps throughout training camp and this past week leading up to the game, and it looked a little rusty at first. And I saw enough of him last night to know that this team, like, they're going to squander another great year of great defense and Garrett Wilson and Brees Hall and Dalvin Cook. And I think there's a world where they can still make the playoffs, though, because what I saw last night was Dalvin Cook and Brees Hall just pounding the rock with,
Mhm.
and that honestly kept them in the game. That kept it close until Wilson could Zach Wilson could only make one big play, and Garrett Wilson, what a catch that was too, for him to like just like bobble it and fumble it and still hold on to it. Like that that's a special kind of player. But also Buffalo didn't help themselves last night, and that's something we got to talk about as well when we get
Yeah.
to it, because Josh Allen was not good.
Well, I saw a statistic like in the last 19 games, he's had like something like 57 interceptions and fumbles together, like that, like basically turned the ball over 57 times in that period. And what you're looking at is almost three turnovers per game during that time, just in the last 19 games. Like, that's crazy to be able to do that. And this is a guy that, he had a great season a few seasons ago in terms of like MVP level status. What he brings to the game is very different in terms of his dynamic, right? He's able to run the ball and throw the ball very effectively, but 4 turnovers, that's not going to get it done.
No.
Against anybody in this league, let alone the Jets without Aaron Rodgers.
And if this had been a team that was, a lot better, like the Dolphins or the Chiefs or the Eagles, the Bills would have lost by 20. Like, that's the thing. Like, he got lucky. He played a Jets team that, honestly, the air had been let out a little bit with him, with Rodgers being done. But if he does this against really good teams, Buffalo's just going to get stomped. And it's not going to be pretty.
And I think they know, too. Like, Stephon Diggs, I don't know if you checked, but his Instagram and his Twitter is deactivated. Like, they know there is heat coming for them. And they dropped an egg. Basically, it did not look good. It didn't feel good. And, like, that should have been a game that tipped right on its head. They had to run the ball effectively, make a few throws when they needed to, and they would have won that game. And, even Sauce Gardner wasn't playing his best last night. I think he had four balls thrown his way and all 4 completions and stuff. So you look at it like he wasn't at the top of his game defensively, and you still don't win that game? Like, come on now. So, it's
a big win for the Jets, though. I will say, like, that punt return was just incredible. And I'll tell you what, too. I know you didn't get a chance to watch Hard Knocks, but I'll tell you, they have a couple rookie wide receivers that they feature a lot in Hard Knocks, and the guy who returned the punt last night, like, he was one of them, and it was just really cool to see.
He was one of the last guys to make the team, right?
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, and it was. It was a great play, too. It wasn't like he got great blocks, and it was good. But while we're talking about quarterbacks that didn't play particularly well, let's dive into week 1 recaps of Kansas City and Detroit. I know you have some thoughts on Kansas City. The floor is yours, my friend.
I will tell you, I've been waiting a little bit for this because, like, it's like almost like when you have to take a dump and it stews a while and you're like, oh no, this is going to be really bad. I've waited. I've had this burning in my stomach since last Thursday when I saw that piss poor performance by Kansas City. And listen, I know the things that I don't like about it is people are giving Mahomes a pass. Listen, he owns it. He needs it, right? He needs some of the blame just as well as the other guys. But the interception that he was given credit for was not an interception. It was definitely Kadarius Toney's fault. I don't think anyone's disputing that, right? Like
1,000%.
Yeah, it's a very catchable ball. Very catchable. Toney dropping 4 out of 5 targets, like, I'm not going to go out there and say he sucks. That's just a really tough thing to watch a receiver go through in one game, right? Like, some guys don't even have 4 or 5 drops in a season, let alone one game. And to see that, it was just really, you felt for him a little bit. So I just was like, man, this guy's having a rough game. Like, they got to get it figured out. So my big thing is, like, who's Kansas City going to throw to? Like, if Kelce's out again, which there's rumors that he might be, who do they throw to? Like, who's reliable here?
I really thought, because they brought back everybody from last year's team, that I thought there was going to be a little more continuity. And I think that was the thing that, like, alarmed me the most, was that, sure, Kelce wasn't there. And that's a big loss. I'm not going to deny it. But the fact that they had Pacheco, Moore, and Toney last year, I just thought there was going to be some more chemistry built in there.
Right.
And it just felt weird that there wasn't.
Maybe MVS sets up or someone. Like, we just figured, I think somebody was going to be like, oh, okay, like, Patrick Mahomes, it's just a plug and play, right? Like, he just can do it.
And that narrative is kind of true, because he did it last year. Like, they didn't really have many people to throw to last year. They had Juju Smith-Schuster and Travis Kelce.
Yeah,
like that's it. And I what's wild with Mahomes is he still was in it right till the end. I really thought until that last play that he was somehow going to pull it out.
The dude always has a chance, right? Like, if he gets the ball in his hands, he's always got a chance.
Yeah.
The biggest thing that pissed me off, and I know I had brought this up to you previously, but dude, I remember these guys as Super Bowl champions walking around the White House and dancing and all that jazz and stuff. And yeah, Pacheco, Sky Moore, Kadarius, I'm looking at you guys. You got
Yeah.
your asses kicked in week 1. The score was a lot closer than this game really was. Like it should have been much further at that point. Like Detroit should have had a much higher score, put up more points against Kansas City, and it shouldn't have even been that close. That's how poorly like they just played, right? It just you guys got to get it together. Get Kelsey back healthy. That stuff that's gonna happen, right? Like injuries happen to every team, but like get it together, guys. You know?
And if they're not careful, I mean, like I think we'll talk about it later, but they play Jacksonville this week, and that's not a gimme game.
No,
That's
it's
not.
definitely not. It's definitely
And
not.
like like Jacksonville, say what you want about that score last year in that game, Jacksonville kind of hung around longer than people thought they were going to.
Yeah.
And I know Mahomes got hurt, and I know there was that, but like, don't sleep on him. Like this isn't a cakewalk game for Kansas City this week. So, but with that, Jones signed a 1-year deal,
Yeah.
which I think is funny to me because they must have really. Kansas City must have really backed up the truck just for that 1 year because I think they saw enough. They saw enough last week against Detroit. They're like, we can't sustain this.
We got to get this figured out, right?
Yeah.
And I don't know, like, so there's some teams in the league, right? Like Bill Belichick's part of like the decision making in terms of the contracts and stuff like that, how guys get paid. I don't know Andy Reid's, how big of a role he has in that. But I think I was just disappointed to see an Andy Reid team play that way, right? Because we've been spoiled for so long that to see them not play well in all 3 facets of the game was kind of just a strange thing to go through, right? Like we're not used to seeing that.
Yeah, and it's funny too because Jones wasn't there. You could tell. You could just tell because like Detroit was kind of running the ball on that will.
Yeah.
Like Goff did just enough. He was solid. Still keeps the streak alive of no picks, which is incredible.
Yeah.
But you could tell not having Jones there wasn't great defensively for Kansas City. Like he's the heart and soul of that defense for a reason.
I kind of have a hot take on him being
sure,
there.
Right.
So like I really think so. Like I say this is a hot take, at least between us that we haven't talked about before. Like Chris Jones is one of the best pass rushers in the league. Like he's that dude that you say, go get the quarterback. He goes and does it. With the running game, I'm not sure it would have made a big difference. I think in those situations, you just run away from him because he's so good. Like you can't run it down his throat. You're not going to be able to. But like what Detroit does well, especially like you saw glimpses of it with Gibbs as a rookie, like this dude's very elusive. I think he leads the league in broken tackles now. He had 6-7 in the game. Like he looked very, very good and did it on limited snaps too. Like really it was Montgomery's day. He was given many carries in that backfield and milked that run a lot behind that line.
Well, I remember when they drafted Gibbs, I just thought that was a weird pick because they had Montgomery, but honestly, he's a nice complimentary back who I think they're going to use a lot. I think he's going to catch a lot of passes out of the backfield. I think so. I think that's how they're going to really use him. And I think Montgomery's going to take the majority of the snaps, and he's going to get the majority of the carries. But Gibbs is a nice change of pace back.
Dude, that's what he did in Alabama, right? Like, that's how they utilized him. He's an excellent out-of-the-backfield pass catcher. Like, I think, okay, so he doesn't have the size that Bijan does, but if you split him out, like, he can run in the slot and be able to, he's a huge mismatch over people, you know? So, I think they've got big things going there. Basically, like, and I think this is kind of where it leads, like, where do we go from here? Like Kansas City, like you were saying, like you don't sleep on Jacksonville and stuff, but what about Detroit?
I think this was, for them, this was a huge confidence boost. And you could tell after the game, too, the way Dan Campbell talked about it and the way Jared Goff talked about it. He was like, hey, we weren't we're not supposed to lose this game. Like, if we're going to be good, we have to win this game. This is a game that we don't usually win, but there's a lot of expectations on this team this year, which means you have to go out and win these big games.
Yeah.
If you are going to do anything in the playoffs or even make the playoffs, you have to start winning big games. And for them to go to Arrowhead, which is one of the few places left in the NFL where home field still matters, and pull one out, and it wasn't pretty at times. Goff had, threw for 220 yards or so, like a kind of a game manager-esque, but I'll tell you what, he made the plays that he needed to when he needed to. And that's all you can ask for out of a quarterback. And, you know what I mean? Amon-Ra St. Brown, like, man, dude was a stud. Like,
I just want to say, don't forget, and I feel like people forget this often, like Jared Goff was the #1 overall pick in the NFL draft. Like, he wasn't a slouch. Like, this is a guy that people saw and was very high up on people's boards. Like, if he had fallen, like, he would have been snagged, like, in the top 5. He went #1 overall when the Rams took him and stuff. Like, the guy's not a bad quarterback. And
the Rams traded up to get him at #1.
See, I forgot that they did that, but it's, you just look at that, and like, also just the point on the defense, they did this against arguably the best quarterback in the NFL.
Yeah.
I really think that bodes well for Detroit and gives them the confidence boost that they need moving forward in the season, especially with Chicago losing this week, right? Like, it's kind of like their division, and I know they'll have a good game against Green Bay when they play them, but like, it feels like that division's up for grabs, and it's going to be theirs now.
And also, last thing about Jared Goff, like, don't sleep on it. I think what brings legitimacy to that locker room in Detroit is that man led a team to a Super Bowl appearance.
Yeah.
That's hard to do.
It is.
That is hard to do.
Yeah, even to just make it there. I know most people said he did it on Gurley's back, but like, it's, that's still tough, right?
Right. Yeah. So let's get into some of the games from last week.
Yep.
Let's start with, we're going to talk about great defenses. San Francisco. Ooh-wee.
Yeah.
Yikes.
Yeah, it was, well, let's just say, like, Nick Bosa is back. I mean, he's a man. So he's back, and he definitely was felt there, when in that win. They absolutely blew out Pittsburgh at Heinz Field, right? So, like, they're playing basically on 10 o'clock body time. Right, like, they already they're firing on all cylinders, looking like they're in midseason form. I thought San Francisco played very well in every facet of the game, right? Like,
defensively, I just felt like all day they were in the backfield for Pittsburgh. Like, anytime like Pittsburgh snapped the ball, they were already in the backfield. It felt like they're just so fast defensively. Like, how do you block all of them? You can't. Like,
they suffocate you, and I think that's kind of the scary part of it. Is like, Kenny Pickett played well in the preseason, right? Like, we saw good plays out of him with his receivers, like running the offense very well and stuff. But like, when you get hit, like they say that, like, what was it, Mike Tyson that said that? Like, everyone's got a plan until they get hit. Well, listen, they got hit and they got hit hard, and I don't know if you're seeing the videos today, but they even showed a clip where Kenny Pickett ended up smashing the back of his head. And they're like, how is the NFL missing this? Like, how is this guy not being taken out after that, So it's kind of, I think he was rattled, man. I really do. They had a hard time protecting him, and they just couldn't get anything going offensively.
Yeah, and I don't think that... I think Pittsburgh's going to be a good team. I know that you're much higher on them than I was, and I think they're a good team. You're going to run it. That team, San Francisco's a really good team.
Yeah.
And Pittsburgh's not at a place right now as a team that they're supposed to beat those teams. I think the story would have been great if they had hung around for 3 quarters, but that's just, honestly, talent won out in that game.
It's a big test week 1, right? Like, and unfortunately they didn't pass. But the way I see it is, like, San Francisco came to play, Pittsburgh did not, and they paid the price for it.
I mean, I think too, like, with San Francisco, we talked about the defense, but the offense. I mean, Brock Purdy just, I can admit when I'm wrong. I was wrong last week when I said, hey, I'm still worried about the elbow. My bad.
He's a guy.
My bad.
Right?
Because he was slinging it downfield when he needed to, and
they came out guns blazing. I mean, Brandon Ayuk.
Yeah.
I know Debo's a great tool and hard to cover and stuff. He's very shifty. They can run him in the slot, run him out of the backfield. Brandon Ayuk has the body of that number one receiver, and he showed yesterday. Sunday, exactly why he can do that. Right? Like it's 2 touchdown catches in the first game of the season. Like this guy's a stud, right? And it wasn't just that. Like it wasn't just those 2 touchdowns. Like he was able to snag in 8 balls for 129 yards that day. Like very, very good.
And like I know Debo's the number one wide receiver on the team, but it almost looked like Brock Purdy just felt more comfortable throwing at Ayuk. Yeah. And I know that he was open more. I know they double covered Debo a lot, so he's going to have a lot of those one-on-one opportunities. But you could just tell that the chemistry was there between those two. Yeah. And I think that might lead to just big things for him this season. And he just had a monster season.
Yeah, I mean, Kittle was a little banged up, right? He's nursing that groin, so like he wasn't targeted nearly as much as I think he should have been. But like, to be honest, like it's okay if you're banged up on that team, right? Because like, oh, okay, well, Kittle's a little banged up. Okay, we'll ride McCaffrey, or we'll throw to Ayuk, or throw to Debo. Like, right? Like they got multiple outlets to be able to go to, and McCaffrey showed again, like, why he's so special and why he deserves what, $18 million a year. Like, you know, that I don't think there's many running backs that can do what he can do, and you know he showcased
McCaffrey's over 7 yards a carry. Yeah. Like he just couldn't, like, they were just running the ball down their throats, and it was impressive, to be honest with you. Like anytime, like it made Purdy's job so much easier. Yeah. Like, because it just felt like San Francisco was in a lot of like 2nd and 4s or 2nd and 3s, which really, like, I know this is very cliche, but it just opens up the whole playbook.
It really does, because when you're gaining that many yards on first down, you can do what you want to do, right? Like, it's like, all right, guys, let's figure out what we want to throw next. Like, let's see if this works, right?
And it's funny, too, because when you watch him run, every time he takes off, you're like, he doesn't look that fast. But then he just like turns on the jets, and then you're like, oh, he's gone. Like you're not catching him. Like
he's an absolute stud.
Yeah, for sure. Speaking of studs, let's talk about Chargers Dolphins, which arguably I think was the game of the day.
Yeah, it really
was. we both called that it was going to be high scoring.
Yeah.
And Tua came to play.
Yeah. So. This is my thing about Tua, and I think a lot of it is a perfect marriage in what you're seeing with McDaniels, and that McDaniels has helped make Tua a better quarterback. Like, he's very quick at recognizing and diagnosing defenses, almost scary in a way, but it reminds me a lot of, and I dare include their names in the same sentence, but like the way Manning was able to kind of like figure out like what a defense was doing, like Tua was able to do that very quickly. And as long as he stays healthy, you're going to see great production out of him, because this guy knows how to play, right? Like, I think a lot of people think like, oh yeah, okay, like he's washed up, he's not that good or anything, but like the guy threw for almost 500 yards. You know, like, he's a stud.
It helps that you have Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle as wideouts. That does help.
Yeah.
Like, he's a really good quarterback, but it also helps that you have 2 of the best receivers in the league.
Yeah.
And Tyreek Hill, man, like, whoo, man, just couldn't be stopped.
No.
Golly.
Like, he comes out at the beginning of the year, right? And like says like, okay, I'm guaranteeing 2,000 yards. Do you know what he's on pace for right now?
I probably like 2,400, like 2,500 yards. Like
it's over 3,000 yards based on the first week and stuff. Yeah. So it's, I mean, okay, that's unrealistic, but like 11 catches, 215 yards, and 2 touchdowns. Like, dude, who are you covering on the field? Like, how is he that open?
And I'll tell you, too, the catch he made on the game-winning touchdown, like, Tua threw that ball perfectly, but you still need to have some really good hands to catch that, because, honestly, he was he had a guy draped on him,
Yeah,
and Tua just dropped that in the perfect spot for him, and the concentration to come down with that catch in such a big moment, like just wow.
absolutely. Yeah, he's awesome to watch, man. Like it just he is the most dangerous player in the NFL.
Yeah,
He really is like, and it just shows like you can see his production now, and I remember seeing it last year too, and thinking to myself like, Kansas City does not have. They've got Travis Kelsey. They do not have a guy like Tyreek Hill. Letting a guy like him walk,
yeah,
it just you're seeing some of the effects of that. You did last year. I know they won the Super Bowl, but like they did it in a very non-traditional way from what they typically were doing before. You're seeing what
sure.
Tyreek Hill does now, and he makes his team a Super Bowl contender by playing that way.
Yeah, it's the home run threat that everybody's always looking for.
Absolutely.
And I think we have to, with this game though, we have to talk about the Chargers blowing it again,
Mm-hmm.
but also I kind of want to break down something a little more specific. End of the first half, that pass interference call. Like, man, what are you doing?
Dude.
What are you doing?
Dude, what? Like, okay, let him catch the ball. Like,
Yeah,
they're not like just let him catch it. Like, or make a play on the ball, but to just push the guy out of the way. Like, do you think no one's gonna see?
yeah,
Like, okay, don't don't pee on my leg and tell me it's raining. Like, at least try to hide it a little bit,
yeah,
right? Like,
yeah,
come on, man. Like these ridiculous pass interference penalties where guys like it's so obvious. Like the 5-year-old sitting up in the nosebleed section can see this. They
yeah.
can call PI from there. Like, just don't do it.
Yeah, that was a play where you don't even need a replay to tell you that's pass interference. Like that is like if you're teaching new fans about football, you just show them that play like, hey, this is pass interference. Plain and simple.
They lost the game by 2, man. Like, you
Yeah,
got rid of
they
that
did.
field goal. Like, like at least you have a shot. Maybe things don't play out exactly the way they would after that, but like you at least have a better shot at winning the game. And like it just continuously bothers me that the Chargers can't seem to get it together under Herbert, right? Like it was a great game. They
Yeah,
played a really good team, but Teron Armstead wasn't there for Miami.
yeah,
Which, like, okay, so you should have been hitting Tua every play. Like, I'm looking at it. What did he throw? One pick? He had
yeah,
two fumbles and stuff. Needs to clean that up. But like, okay, you should have been hitting him a lot more without his starting left tackle there. Don't forget on defense, Jalen Ramsey's not there. Like, this is a
yeah.
team. When I look at that, this team doesn't stand a chance in the playoffs against Miami.
Yeah, they wasted a good Eckler performance, 16 carries, 117 yards, 1 touchdown, 4 catches. Like they it feels like what they're doing with Herbert is what they did with Phil Rivers.
Yeah,
They had all that talent, and they just wasted it by dumb decisions, time after time after time. And it's almost like kind of the curse of the Chargers.
yeah,
Like they have, like remember the year they had the number one offense and the number one defense in the league, and somehow they missed the playoffs.
yeah.
Like,
It feels like just their luck. I hate to say that, but like,
yeah,
I heard an interesting quote about kind of LA teams and stuff, and they talked about like kind of what's going on at USC as well. That like these LA teams, like they've got good quarterbacks, and they're just like, oh yeah, like we don't need to play defense; they can get it done for us. And it's like becoming an
yeah,
LA thing now, where it's like, oh yeah, like the quarterback will just get it done for us. But it's like, how much heavy lifting can they do? Right? Like
yeah,
you got to play defense at some point, right? And you got to be smart about how you play defense too.
yeah. Speaking of defense, boy, the Dallas Cowboys defense.
Wow.
Ooh, buddy.
Wow.
We're going to talk about this when we get to fantasy.
Yeah.
They single-handedly carried me to a fantasy football the number one spot this week.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'll
Absolutely.
be honest with you.
Like their defense, like that, it was a story of defense for them, right? Like, I mean,
Yeah,
you're looking at the guys up front, Odigizuma and Armstrong, like 2 sacks apiece. Like, and let me just point out too, like, okay, so these guys go, they get credit for the sacks, I get that and stuff, but that is part of the reason they're able to do that is because you've got all the attention focused on Micah Parsons, right? Like he just
Yeah.
garners so much attention that it's like, oh man, like it's gonna be really you got to pay attention to him every play, every play.
Yeah. Yeah, and I'll tell you, the Dallas defense, like we knew they were going to have a good defense coming into the season.
Mm-hmm.
We knew that was going to be their bread and butter. But boy, they just brought it to the Giants, and you could tell after the first snap what kind of game this was going to be. I went to the bathroom for 2 minutes, and everything had just gone to hell for the Giants, and I was like, wow, this is, and it just kept happening, and they couldn't move the ball, and they couldn't. It felt like Dallas knew every play they were going to call.
You know what it reminded me of? And I know this is like an interesting analogy, but it's like those videos that you see in the warehouse of the guy running the forklift and like he runs into the side of something and then all of a sudden the whole thing falls over onto the floor and it just keeps falling. Like more crap just keeps falling on the floor.
Yeah.
That's what it felt like. And even if you heard, I don't know if you caught it, but Micah Parsons was saying on his podcast, like, take Daniel Jones out.
Yeah.
What is he still doing in there? Like, he even gave the comparison, like, Cincinnati was getting their butts kicked. They took Joe Burrow out. Like, what are you doing leaving your $40 million quarterback still in the game for me to hit? Like, what are you doing?
Yeah, Dallas was just teeing off on him.
Yeah.
What's funny is there were a lot of times where they would have design runs for Daniel Jones, and that just became even more of an open season to tee off on him. And guys were just leveling him.
Yeah.
And why you don't take him out is beyond me. That's wild to me. That's just reckless.
It's interesting too, and this is like the only negative piece that I see from the game in terms of the Cowboys is people still want to give a hard time to Dak. They're like, he didn't throw that well. He didn't need to. Like, it seems like at every point in time, people are trying to drag this dude through the mud. Like, it's really bothersome because, like, I don't think he's ever done anything to, like, cause any of this ill will from people and stuff, right? Like, the guy's a player. He really is. Like, and I think this team, like, I didn't want to say it before because, like, we were talking about the Jets with Zach Wilson and that great defense. I think the Cowboys have a better defense than the Jets do. But when I start thinking of what Dak needs to do on this team and what he needs to accomplish, I start thinking of guys like Trent Dilfer, Brad Johnson, and like how they were able to get to a Super Bowl riding a very good defense. Like Dallas is going to create a lot of problems this year for people. And I think the biggest test for them is going to be Philly. I don't see anyone else really testing them that much. Not the Jets anymore. They're going to have a field day next week, man.
Well, I think what the stats don't show with Dak, and I'll be honest with you, I'm not the biggest Dak believer. I'm not. I think that I've just watched him enough in the playoffs, just time and time again when it really counts, him just coming up short. But that's a playoff thing. But what I think is not talked about with why he didn't have a lot of high, good stats this week. A lot of times they were starting on the Giants 30 for drives.
Yeah.
You can only go, you know what I mean? You can only throw it so many times. Yeah.
And I mean, also Paul on the ground, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they gave it to Pollard a bunch. He had 2 touchdowns. I don't know. This just didn't seem like a game where I was like, oh, Dak played bad. He didn't really have to do much.
No.
He just, and to go back to that, I think Dallas, if they can get just a game manager from Dak, that's fine. If the defense is going to play like that, that's all you need. That's how Trent Dilfer won a Super Bowl.
Yeah, it's true.
You just got to make, I think at some point he's going to have to make a play, and I think the question is, can he?
Yeah.
And that remains to be seen. And, there will be a time this season where, Dallas's defense doesn't probably show up as much as you want them to, and Dak's going to have to make a play.
Yeah.
And what does that look like then? So
exactly. Yeah, we'll have to wait and see on that. But things definitely week 1, they look like they are one of the favorites to go to a Super Bowl, based on the way they played, especially against that Giant team. So
yeah, and switching gears there. I know we talked a little bit about quarterbacks that just didn't play well earlier, and we talked about Josh Allen a little bit, but I want to kind of really break that down because like he again threw a pick as they were driving and threw a pick in the end zone, and like it just cost them. And yeah, man, I can't get enough of what happened with Josh Allen. Is that guy? He's on the cover of Madden. He's on. You know what I mean? Like,
it's giving you nightmares curse? Now. Yeah, it's giving you nightmares. Like, and it's interesting too because like, so we talk about Josh Allen and other quarterbacks as well, but I don't feel like Allen gets the scrutiny that some of these other quarterbacks do. Right? Same thing. Like Patrick Mahomes. Like, okay, so he's won a few Super Bowls. I say that. I don't mean it disrespectfully. Like, he's won a few Super Bowls. He's a great quarterback and stuff. But like, if a quarterback throws an interception and makes a bad decision, like we should be grading them the same way. If they're turning the ball over and not protecting the ball, like they should be graded the same way. They play the same position, right? Like, I don't know. I just think like, and I think Allen can get it together. I hope he does. I want to see him do well. I love his story. I don't know. He's going to have to figure out a way to clean it up.
I feel like the story every year with Josh Allen is also, hey, he's not going to take as many risks or many chances. Mm-hmm. There were a few times he took off last night where, like, instead of sliding, he just, like, lowered his shoulder. Like, he's going to get hurt doing that. Like, Buffalo's paid him all this money, and that bill's going to come due where he lowers his shoulder against the wrong guy, and it's over.
See,
it is over.
You say that, and immediately what comes to mind, and I know, like, we try to keep our own personal teams out of it because they're not good, but, like, I think about it, and I'm like, okay, Anthony Richardson, new prized quarterback, yeah, let's lower your shoulder and get crushed. Like, welcome to the NFL, buddy.
And at least with Richardson, I will give him a pass on that because he's a rookie.
Yeah.
He's gonna. That's just a learning curve moment. Josh Allen's been in the league long enough now.
Yeah.
That like you should know better.
He knows better, but he's still like Josh Allen. You could tell him like, hey, don't ride that one-wheeled bicycle down that hill.
He's going to,
and he's gonna do it. He's gonna do it, man. Like he's gonna hurdle people. He's gonna try to like jump over a guy and like spear another guy to get a first down. Like he's gonna do it, man. Like it's just. Yeah. I don't know. It's tough for him to turn that off because that's the way he plays football, right? And that's also the way we've learned to love watching him play football too. So it's like, I wrestle with this in my mind constantly, like thinking about that.
Yeah. He's so. The things we love about him are the things we also don't like about him, and it's a catch-22. It really is. It really is. And I think too, like I think a lot of people are saying that like Buffalo lost this game, but the Jets did some really good things that I don't think are being talked about, especially their running game. Mm-hmm. Like Breece Hall had that big run, which I think that if this was week 6 or week 7 when he's a little more healed from that torn ACL, he takes that to the house.
Right,
he does.
Yeah,
Dalvin Cook.
I mean, that's okay. That's okay.
Eli Manning said that last night in the Manning cast. He's like, oh, he's out of shape as he was running.
Oh, did he really? Oh, man.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not surprised that he is because, like, dude, he hasn't had time to be able to, like, fully recover. Like, it takes a human body a long time to be able to come through that, right? Like, he looked really good on that run when he started. He just slowed up a little ways down, right? Like, and I thought it was a house call, but it's.
Too, they didn't activate him. They didn't clear him to start practicing until like halfway through training camp.
Yeah.
So he missed like half of training camp worth of reps.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you, for Dalvin Cook not having a ton of training camp reps, he looked good.
Yeah.
Man, he was I'll tell you, he was just the guy that was lowering the shoulder and just getting those tough yards.
He had a decent stat line. It wasn't like super impressive, but he had a decent stat line for the game. I don't know. Like any of the stats that come out of last night, I kind of take with a grain of salt because like of what happened with Rodgers and stuff. Like it just, I don't know. Like, are they playing off of emotion? Like, is this the Jets team we're gonna see? Like, I don't know, man. Like, can Zach Wilson be that guy? I don't know. Can he?
Yeah, I think history has shown that I don't think that he can. And I am interested to see what the Jets do, because with Rodgers being out for the season and they have all that talent, I'm curious if they trade for somebody.
Yeah.
I know they traded for Rodgers, which, looking at that trade now, because Rodgers won't play 65% of the snaps. That actually becomes a second round pick that the Jets have to give up, and not a first round pick.
Yeah.
So they still have their first round pick that they could potentially do something with and maybe get another quarterback.
Right.
Do you get somebody like a Jimmy G from Vegas? Yeah. Because like Vegas isn't going to go anywhere. I know they beat Denver, and we'll talk about that. We'll talk about it in our upsets.
You know who I've actually heard rumblings of, and I don't know if there's legs to this or not, but I've heard rumors of Kirk Cousins. And I'll tell you, like, not a lot of people really like Kirk Cousins, but he's been serviceable everywhere he's been. He's given teams, the teams that he's played on, he's given them a chance. And they didn't re-sign him in Minnesota. So he's gone after this year unless they, back up the truck to him. But I don't think they're going to do that, right? Like, he's been very smart. He's made very good money in the NFL. Very good. So every contract he signed, he's been very smart about. But maybe it's a shot. I don't know.
Yeah, with Cousins too, like what you're going to get from him is you're going to get somebody that's going to lead you. He's very serviceable. He's going to put up decent stats. He's going to get you to the playoffs. Might even win you a game. Like, but that, you know what I mean? Like, that's.
But think about honestly,
that's all you need.
Yeah, like, I don't know. I think about it there and stuff like, can you bring him into a different system? I just don't know, right? Like, I don't know if it's a good fit. I really don't.
Yeah. Why don't we talk about some of the games that we thought were upsets this week? Because I felt like there were some upsets in week one, and I know
there were.
And I know with week one, it's a lot of it. We don't want to overreact too much, but there were some head scratchers games that I didn't watch that I looked at the score after, and I was like, wait, are we talking about the same teams here? Like, what for you stood out as the biggest upset?
I mean, I think the biggest upset for me, and like just me personally, like, we went through our Super Bowl picks. I had Cincinnati being there. Like they got crushed in Cleveland, and so we could chalk it up. Like, it reminded me, it was reminiscent of the game the year prior where didn't the Bears beat San Francisco in the rain? Like, so it kind of
they did like 10-9 or something like that.
It kind of reminded me of that, but like just Cleveland really poured it on, and like they were able to play well in that type of game. Their team is well suited for that. So I would probably say, Cincinnati getting beat, because I picked them to go to the Super Bowl this year. And don't forget, like, Joe Burrow got off to a slow start last year. He threw 4 picks in week 1 against Pittsburgh last year. Like, and they were one call away from making it to the Super Bowl this year. So like, it's I think they get it figured out.
Yeah, I think too. Cincinnati, like, they're just a team that they start slow. They do. They started 0-2 last year, and they, like you said, they were one questionable call away from going back to the Super Bowl. And I think the weather had a big part to do with that. And Burrow also didn't play in the preseason. And that has to get factored in there a little bit. Like, he didn't have the preseason reps. He didn't last year. I'm going to give it a pass, but I am concerned.
Yeah.
I'm like slightly, on a scale of 1 to 10, I'm a 2. I'm like, I'm not really concerned, but it's the thoughts are there.
Yeah, or it's not 1, right? Like, it's it's building, right?
Yeah.
What about for you? What game was the most surprising for you?
Honestly, Tampa beating the Vikings was weird to me. It was just weird to me. Like,
are you a Baker Mayfield hater?
I'm not a Baker Mayfield hater. I just have watched him play enough football that, like, he's decent. But, like, I think that's all he is. but then I like thought about it for a minute, and like you just look at that roster from Tampa. It's still a lot of the guys that won a Super Bowl a few years ago are on that roster.
Yeah, they still got
Like,
quite a few.
yeah, they have still have a decent defense.
Mm-hmm.
I guess I just thought that with Mayfield that maybe I don't know. I just thought that like this was a gimme game for the Vikings.
Mm-hmm.
And we all thought that like Tom Brady retiring was like, oh, Tampa's going to take a huge step back because they weren't good last year.
Right.
And the book's still out on whether they're good, but that was probably the most shocking thing I saw this past week was, I mean, Tampa has a lot of weapons, and if Mayfield can be serviceable, they're going to go far. Like, they'll be all right, especially in that division.
And listen, I don't want to take away anything you said because I think it's right about Tampa Bay and stuff, but like I feel like I would have felt a little differently about it if it wasn't Minnesota that they beat. Right? Like the team with the unquestioned best receiver in the NFL, like I don't know how that team loses. Like, I mean, I watched it and I'm also was the one saying like, oh yeah, Brian Flores is not going to be able to fix this defense. Like, I know they kept Daniel Hunter, but like they don't really have much else on defense. Like, I don't see it there, right?
Yeah.
So like for me to go through and like expect them to win, they need to win by putting up tons of points, and 17 points is not going to get it done.
And they wasted a great game from Jefferson and the guy we talked about, Jordan Addison. Jordan Addison had himself a game.
Yeah, he played well. He looked good too. Like,
yeah,
he also and I'm not going to say I don't think he dropped it and stuff, but they also had like a few other passes that went his direction that I was like, okay, like that was decent. Like plays that got broken up. I think Cousins actually threw a pick when he was throwing a ball that was directed at Addison. So I'd like to see him be a little more aggressive with that or put that in a better spot for Addison. But definitely was very hopeful for a guy that's a rookie.
Also, another game that like I guess I was a little surprised at, but not really when I think about it, was the Rams Seahawks game because. You sometimes forget that Aaron Donald is still just a beast.
Yeah.
And he showed why.
Yeah.
I don't know if you caught the clip. They're rushing Geno Smith. He's rushing Geno Smith. And as he's about to hit him, Geno Smith yells, "Oh God."
Yeah. Yeah.
Funniest thing I've ever seen.
Yeah, it's really like the fact that he could say that in the moment, it's kind of brilliant. And I think that is the reason it resonates so much is because we all would feel that way. Like I think anybody, there's no one in the NFL that's like, yeah, I like playing against Aaron Donald. Like it's just like you're looking at that game on the schedule and you're like, no.
Well, they show the other side of that play too, and what he does to that lineman is he just like pushes. He just keeps pushing him back, and then it almost kind of picks him up and like throws him to the side.
Yeah, he managed
to get to Geno Smith.
Yeah,
like
it's I think you're right, man. Like the Seahawks, like clearly I thought had more on their roster. Like the Rams, it's no secret. Like they've got one of the worst rosters in the NFL.
One of the youngest too.
Yeah, one of the youngest too. And not to say that they have bad players, but the talent just isn't at the level of some of these other teams. And when you look at a team like the Seahawks and what they were able to do last year, and you look at them bringing in Jackson Smith and Jigba, Zach Charbonnet, like this is a team primed to be able to go and possibly be the representative out of the NFC, and to see them drop a dud week one like that is just, it does not make you feel good. Like, did Geno all of a sudden turn back into a pumpkin, or like what's going on here with this?
Well, I remember when we talked about like our playoff teams, I didn't have Seattle as one of my playoff teams because honestly, I just thought that like Geno Smith was going to revert back to the Geno Smith that we all know. Mm-hmm. Like he had a comeback year. He got paid. I mean, we'll see going forward, but like I think that might be something where Geno Smith isn't great, and I'm honestly shocked that Seattle, and I know we talked about this, like Seattle didn't go up and get one of those quarterbacks in this year's draft.
Yeah, I know you
They
had
have the
mentioned.
draft
Yeah,
capital.
you had mentioned that
Like,
before. It is kind of shocked that shocking they didn't. Like I knew
yeah,
Levis was there, but like look at Levis now. Like he's maybe third string. Like if they even feel like him suiting up in Tennessee.
right.
So like I don't know.
Yeah.
They could have gone
Uh,
Henderson Hooker, but I don't know if like that would have been a
yeah.
good pick for them either.
Out of all the stuff that you watched last week, what best performance that you saw from an individual player? Who was it for you? Because there were some good ones. There were some good ones.
Listen, I think it's got to be. Can I pick one for offense and one for defense?
Let's have it.
Oh, okay, so
Let's have it.
Tyreek Hill for offense, just because he's a stud, man. Like he's an
Yeah.
absolute beast. Pretty amazing. What he's able to do when, uh, he with the ball in his hands. Like there's just no one that can control this guy, right? And like he's shown
Right.
it now. Like I had him in fantasy last year, so I got to watch it every single week. But like this year, like it really is it's scary to watch him play because you are looking every time the ball snapped to like, okay, where's the little guy? Where is it? Is he gonna catch the ball? Where's number 10?
Yeah.
Okay, like and you don't know what he's capable of every single time. Like this guy could take it to the house on any given play.
Yeah.
For defensively for me, I initially had TJ Watt, which was the lone bright spot in Pittsburgh, but
Sure was.
I am changing that. And the only reason
Okay.
being is last night's game kind of changed it for me. Jordan Whitehead with the 3 picks and the Jets win. Like 3 interceptions, man. Like you get 3. Like
Yeah.
dude, I'm sorry, JJ Watt, or I'm sorry, TJ Watt, but like that's disrespectful not to pick Jordan Whitehead. Like 3 picks in
Right.
one game, dude's a G. He deserves a shout out,
Yeah.
and yeah, it's definitely deserves it. What about you?
For offense, I'm going to take Tyreek Hill's teammate Tua. Because what I saw from him, what I really liked was end of the game, you need a score. He drove his team down the field and got that touchdown. And I think, and against a good team, say what you want about the Chargers defensively, they are what they are.
Yeah.
But like still to take that on the road and drive the length of the field to get that game-winning score, like that showed a lot for me.
Yeah.
I was really impressed by that. Also, throwing for 466 yards, not too bad either.
Definitely wasn't. Yeah, like that's a great start to the season. The one thing specifically that I really like about him being able to throw for that much yardage, it was like 334 yards of that was against man coverage.
Yeah.
Like that is, I mean, he's able to do that, but I don't think when you play against Miami, you can play man coverage against them. I just don't think you can do it. They have too much speed,
Yeah.
man. They got a track team on that squad. Like it's too much.
Yeah, the list of corners that can keep up with Tyreek in man coverage, that list is pretty much non-existent.
Yeah.
Let's be honest. Like, you have to play zone against them, but even then, that's a pick your poison because Tyreek is so fast, and he's been in the league long enough. He knows where the holes are in that zone defense every time.
He knows where that
Every
ball
time.
is. Yeah, he's able to get there.
And it's just a matter of if the line can protect Tua. And if that's the case, watch out.
Yeah.
Yeah. Defensively for me,
Yeah.
I want to just say the whole 49ers defense.
Yeah.
I wish that I could just nominate a position group, just call it just that.
Yeah.
But Drake Jackson from the 49ers,
Yeah.
specifically, man, he made Kenny Pickett's day a living hell.
Yeah. I mean, anytime you get 3 sacks in a game, like it feels good. Like I feel like the guys that I only hear doing that are like TJ Watt, Khalil Mack from years past, right? And like now all in week 1, like you've got a bunch of guys that were able to do it and do it effectively. And that's basically how you change the game, right? Like you get after the quarterback, you're able to change the game. Look at what happened with Dallas. They had 7 sacks in that game. 7.
Yeah.
Like it just your quarterback's getting hit all over the place. Like I don't even know if Daniel Jones knows what day of the week it is.
Probably not.
Like they probably thought that was a bad dream the other night, right? Like,
yeah. I also, though, I want to give a shout out to Calvin Ridley for just making it back. Like, the dude,
Yeah.
like, he had the gambling thing, which I think personally is baloney. I think it is, especially if you're being sponsored by companies like DraftKings. I think that's ridiculous. I know we don't have time. I would love to go into that at a later date. But I think it's ridiculous. But also, too, I think what I really appreciated is he was really open and honest about, like, the mental health struggles that he went through, like, during that year away. And, like, leading up to that, the mental health struggles that he had. And I think it was just really nice to see him, like, come back and, like, play for a team that, like, has aspirations this year. And he was a real reason why the Jags won on Sunday.
He
was
good. Like, how can you not feel good for this guy, right? Like, he really did look good, and that felt good to see that and kind of witness that. So, man, really happy to see him come back and, like, look like himself again. It was definitely a good experience to see that.
Yeah, and also, too, like, the rookies that we saw on Sunday, like, just come right in and make a real difference. Jordan Addison, Bijan Robinson, Brian Branch, even Anthony Richardson. Like, say what you want, like, he had that team in the game for longer than I thought they were going to. And it's nice. I think there's a good crop of rookies this year, and I think it's going to make the league really interesting and exciting.
Yeah, when we're talking about guys like that in the first week, and then obviously Jahmyr Gibbs too. We talked about him earlier. Like, dude, this draft class had a lot of talent in it, and a lot of talent that you're seeing play early, right? Like, these guys are in starting positions right out of the gates and stuff. Bijan, no one's seen the rest of him, man. Like, that guy is an absolute freak. Be on the lookout this year for him. Like, he showcased exactly why he's that talented and why he was drafted where he was on Sunday.
Bijan's so good that Atlanta had to create a special depth chart spot called the Joker for Cordell Patterson.
Yeah,
because they knew they couldn't start him at running back.
Yeah,
because Bijan's that good. Like, a lot of injuries too. Oh boy. I mean, I know this episode is called our Achilles heel, but Kelsey out. Looks like he might play for next week, but we're not. This week we're not sure. Yeah. Bone bruise is no joke, man. It's a deep bone bruise.
It doesn't sound good for him and stuff. Like, realistically, like, so he's a tough guy, right? So, like, I could see I can envision a possibility of him being there for week 2, but likely I would say to be safe, they're going to hold him out to week 3, even though he wants to get back in there this week. I think you just do it, right? Like, if it's a team that's like the Chiefs, where you anticipate them making the playoffs, like, they've got to hold him out longer till he's okay, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you can't joke around with things like that. And
the tight end position in general is just, like, it's hampered this season, right? Like, already out of the gates, you got, like, the top 4 or 5 guys that have injuries already. Like, it's brutal, man.
Right. Yeah. Same with Jacoby Myers, concussion protocol.
Dude, did you see that hit?
That hit was gross. Like, I watched that once and I was like, I don't need to watch that again.
Like, they were talking about possibly, like, him in the fencing pose, because I guess that's what they call it, right? The fencing pose and stuff. Like, I just, man, I really hope he's okay, because, like, dude, he was having a great game before that, and, like, not as that being the main reason for him being okay. You just don't want to see anyone get injured, right? Like, it's just, it's not a segment we really love doing, because, like, we're talking about stuff that's kind of negative that we don't really like.
Yeah, that's really tough. I really hope that they hold him out for a week, because that hit was scary looking, and I hope that he's okay. And I just hope he's okay. There's not much more I can really say about that. That was just scary, man. Yeah. And speaking of concussions, Tyler Lockett, possible concussion. Not sure if he's going to be out. And then we got the season-ending injuries. Boy, there were a lot of them for week 1.
Yeah.
Like, and big name players too. Dobbins, out for Baltimore. You have a funny story that you shared with me before we started recording about Dobbins in our fantasy league.
Yeah, so I was feeling like, okay, so I'm not a Nostradamus. I'm not
Mhm.
brilliant, but I do have my moments. So just say, like, let me just say I was feeling a little Dobby about Dobbins beforehand. And I wasn't that high on him. I drafted him. I kind of got like cornered into drafting him because of what was available on the board, where I had him on my ranks, everything like that. And so I ended up taking him, and I didn't want him. And just because like I've had him in the past, he's gotten injured. I try to stay away from guys like that, and I just didn't care for him. So I tried to put together. I'm really high on Damian Pierce. He's one of my guys this year. I think he's going
Yeah.
to crush it. I think he ends the season as a top 10 back. So the guy in my league that I was actually playing had Damian Pierce. So I offered him J.K. Dobbins and Traylon Burks for Damian Pierce, and I got a nice text from my buddy saying, "You're a complete idiot. That's a bad trade. That's awful." And literally 2 minutes after, J.K. Dobbins tears his Achilles, and he messages me back and is like, "Dude, you're an oracle. You are." So I
Yeah.
was very lucky this time that it worked out. Next time I'm gonna get crushed on making a move like that because it's very risky. And
Oh yeah.
but yeah, with Dobbins, like, and not that I ever want to make light of an injury, right? Like, it's sad that
Right.
he's out and stuff. I just wasn't that high on him in terms of fantasy and stuff. I know
Yeah.
this is a contract year for him, like, right? Like, the dude's trying to get paid. He was going to hold out and stuff, but, like, I don't know who's
Yeah.
going to pay him now. Like, it's, that's a
Yeah.
tough thing.
Of all the times to like get hurt like that in a contract year, it's just that's rough.
Yeah. Well,
Like,
and Conklin too. Like, so like he's
yeah.
in Cleveland. Like, that's really really bad for Nick Chubb and Cleveland in general. Like, I just, and that's a rough thing to see, right? Like, Conklin's a well liked guy. Like,
Yeah.
it just ACL MCL tear, and like to be gone for the year. Like, it's really a tough thing to like see a guy go through that.
And really the anchor of that Cleveland offensive line. Like he's the
Yeah.
reason a lot of times that like Chubb, you see Chubb getting 120, 130 yards a game on 20 carries. Like
Yeah.
he's a big part of that. And it's interesting to see going forward how that affects Chubb. Like,
You know what? One thing I just wanted to mention, because I feel like sometimes like it part of like what we do is like trying to find the right information and to discern what's good information from bad information. And so like sometimes
yeah,
that can kind of be a challenge, especially when it comes to injuries, because like I spend a lot of time on Twitter. I know you spend a lot of time on social media looking through stuff like that. Like, for me, like someone I found that I think is very, very good is Deepak Chona, and you could find him
yeah,
at SportsMD Analysis on Twitter, or X rather. I just find that like he always provides not only good injury updates, but the analysis that he provides of those injuries is very easy to understand. And he will
right.
lay it out, not only like the severity of something like that, but the usual timetable for it. So
Yeah,
I think like he's someone that I've been following for a while now, and like very accurate a lot of the time. Very good at what he does.
yeah. I agree. Yeah, he's a good Twitter or X follower for
Yeah.
sure. Yeah,
Who knows? We could get in trouble for saying Twitter. I don't know. But like,
yeah,
what is it? Twitter X? I don't know. Some
yeah,
people, their phones don't even update it correctly. So
yeah. You know what? Fight me, Elon Musk. Fight me. I don't
yeah,
care.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Um, let's talk about fantasy football real quick. How'd you do this week?
Ooh, so this week, little rough. Yeah, little rough. So I obviously, like, I made that great trade and that helped me, but
Sure.
like one of my teams has Mark Andrews and Cooper Cup, and both were out this week, and I got
Not great.
slaughtered in that league. So it didn't feel good. I'm still alive in the guillotine league.
Yeah.
As
Well,
you are too.
week one's a freebie week for us.
Yep, week
It's a
one's a freebie
freebie week,
week,
which is
but
good.
still there, so
Yeah.
that's good.
Yeah.
And we'll kind of have to see like how that goes moving forward. But what about you? How'd you end up doing?
So you and I are in the guillotine league, and I'm going to be honest with you. Monday night, I knew I was in first place in our league,
Hmm.
and honestly that was all because of a 40-point performance from the Dallas Cowboys defense.
Yeah,
I'll take it.
they're awesome.
And I also love Austin Eckler, which was quite nice.
Hmm.
It was a good week. It was a good week.
Yeah,
But I was like looking at the last place teams in our guillotine league, getting ready, being like, okay, who am I going to spend real money? Who am I going to spend money on to like upgrade my team with.
Yeah.
So I'm glad that I have another week to like think that through.
Yeah.
But I did well this week. It was a good week.
You got
Yeah.
Aaron Jones too, right?
Yeah, it's
So
not great.
it's not
Hamstring.
great, yeah, because of the hamstring, but like he had a good performance for you. So like
Yeah.
hopefully that's it's mild and nothing big, and he's able to get back out there. But yeah, it's always good to
Honestly,
see you up top there.
yeah, honestly, the weak spot of my team right now in that league is quarterback.
Yeah,
I'm glad I didn't start Daniel Jones. That's all I'm going to say. I'm
yeah.
glad I didn't start him. But my other option is Russell Wilson. So definitely in a position I'm going to look to hopefully upgrade once teams start dropping in our D18 league.
Well,
So
and I feel like that's actually a good segue into like waiver wire ads for this week, because I know that
yeah,
like some of the people we have watching probably are wondering like, okay, like who are guys that I'm gonna kind of look for, and just me personally and stuff like Justice Hill, Gus the Bus Edwards, like I know in some of my leagues Gus Edwards already was sniped up and stuff, but with Dobbins being out, like I think it's a no-brainer to kind of go for one of them. But the only other guy that I'm really high on that I think, especially now that Cup is out and he's shown he can do it, is Puka Nakua. Like he's just
yeah,
he's a stud, man. Like he really
yeah,
is. So, and I think he'll continue that. Like they're gonna have to throw the ball and stuff, and like Matt Stafford and him have good rapport. Like he played well. So that
yeah,
would kind of be mine. One of the things that I think people kind of struggle with is, obviously like adding players and stuff, but like, okay, like I know I want to add this guy, right? But like, who do I drop to like do that, right? And I
yeah,
think it kind of depends on your league, right? Like you have to understand like what league you're in, what roster setup you have, like what you think about
right,
the guys, how strongly you feel about the guys on your bench. But
yeah,
first thing I would say is like in one QB leagues, drop a backup quarterback. If you're
absolutely,
Yeah, if you got a backup kicker, backup defense on your roster, boom, get them out of there.
yeah,
Like you don't need to be stashing that stuff. Like these are things you can get off the waiver wire on bye weeks and stuff like that. But
yeah,
I would say look for that, and then maybe like a backup tight end if you've got that. Depending on how high you are on them, right? Like if you've got Mark Andrews and Luke Musgrave on your bench, like don't drop. Like obviously Andrews is questionable. Don't drop Musgrave because then you're going to be out, right? Like, but I think that's what I would say is like, look for those areas of opportunity to try to get rid of those guys to get the guys in that are going to help score you points, right? And
yeah,
if you have questions, if you're stuck there trying to decide, drop us a comment below. Let us know, and
absolutely,
we'll definitely hook it up.
yeah. Yeah, I think for me, the big waiver wire pickup I think you're going to see in week two, if people don't already have him, Hayden Hurst from Carolina.
Yeah, man. Like, and
Yeah,
this is the guy they were talking about in the preseason too, right? Like
yeah,
he was Bryce Young's favorite target, and I feel like everyone slept on him, right?
yep. Yeah, I feel like if you don't have him already in leagues, you're going to see him go pretty quickly. And if you have if you have to spend money on him, like you're going to shell out a few dollars for him. I think when it's all said and done. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Um, week one, we know this is kind of the last thing. Week one, we know that there are overreactions, underreactions. Tyreek Hill on pace for 3,600 yards. That's not sustainable.
Yeah, I think
You
that's an
know,
overreaction, right?
sure,
Yeah.
sure. The Colts, Bucks, Raiders, Rams. I think. Do we think they're going to be better than what we think this year? Because for me, I think the Raiders aren't going to be. I think the Raiders just got lucky week one. I think the Rams will be decent though, because when you have somebody like Aaron Donald on your defense, he is going to make life really hard for opposing offenses. And same with the Bucks, good defense, still a lot of talent, and yeah.
Listen, they are who we thought they were, and yet
R.I.P. Dennis Green.
yeah. So like when I look at it and stuff, I don't know. I think the Colts are going to be better. They played Jacksonville tough. The Bucks, they're not going to just throw games this year, right? Like they still have good guys on that roster. You're going to see that roster get depleted a little bit by week 7 because they're going to make some trades. There's going to be some guys moving there because they have talent on that team. Same thing with the Rams. I envision some areas where maybe Aaron Donald goes to another team. I don't want to say that too loud because don't want to see that happen, but there's a world where that can happen. Raiders, I'm already wrong. I thought they were gonna not win a game this year, and they beat Denver, so I'm wrong. But
Yeah. Yeah, I think too, what I think you're going to see a lot of teams do, I think you're going to see a lot of teams tanking for Caleb Williams this year. I
yeah.
really think you're going to see, like, I think you're going to see a lot of really bad teams this year.
Mhm.
You're going to see teams like, I think, like the Cardinals. I know they have Kyler Murray, but I think when it's all said and done, they're either going to get rid of, they're either going to trade him or they're going to cut him.
Dude, they're not
Like,
playing him this year. It's not gonna happen.
no.
Right? Like he's got the injury clause in his contract and stuff. Like, dude, if he gets hurt,
Yeah.
like they lose a ton of money and they owe him a ton of money. Like it doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
They're
Yeah.
not playing.
The Vikings, I think this was a blip on the radar for them. I'm going to say, I don't think they took Tampa seriously.
Yeah.
I don't think that they did, because I wouldn't have taken Tampa seriously, because I thought they were going to be kind of bad this year, and they still might be. But like, they have enough talent where, like, if they go 9-8, you could look at the roster and be like, oh, that makes sense. They have enough talent on that roster to have, win a division title. Sure.
And see, I'm overreacting to Minnesota underreacting to Tampa Bay.
Ooh, okay.
Yeah,
right.
like it just I think they thought that they could sneak by and they didn't. And now
Yeah.
I'm looking at that and like I'm definitely feeling the heat from that because it's like Minnesota should be better. So I'm kind of questioning myself on that. Like, what are you doing? But I have them struggling this year. I really do.
Yeah.
So
I think I'm taking a step back on them. I think that last year, I think they were like, what, 11-0 in one-score games.
mhm.
Like, there's just no way that that's sustainable for another season.
Yeah.
I think you lose like 3 or 4 of those games, like you're on. Yeah, I think they're going to be okay.
Mhm.
I think that they're going to make the playoffs, but it was a little concerning. It was a little concerning. Like, Tampa punched them in the mouth.
Yeah.
They did. And talking about the Vikings in that NFC North, Jordan Love, man.
Yeah.
Whoo! I know it's the Bears. I get it. I know it's the Bears, but still, like, showed enough things that I was like, okay, like,
with
could be
the top
something.
receiver down.
Yeah. And we talked about in our preview episode before the season that Jordan Love, I think, is an addition. Like, I think that he's an addition by subtraction. What I mean by that is, like, they got rid of Aaron Rodgers, okay? And he was a polarizing figure in that locker room. Say what you want about him, but, like, he definitely divided that locker room. And I think with him being gone, Jordan Love, like, guys seem like, from what I've read, like, really like this guy and are, like, rallying around him. And I think
he's a good
player. I think there's a world where, I think there's a world where Green Bay, like, I think they're going to be a tough team this year. Like, because I think they're going to have a lot of team chemistry. And I know you can't really quantify that into wins, but, like, I think they're going to be a tough team this year that people won't take seriously.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Yeah, and the Jets, they got to do something at quarterback because a year of Zach Wilson is not sustainable for that team.
Not when the time to win is now. I think it's just, I don't know. Aaron Rodgers took the big pay cut. Like, what guys do you lose in free agency next year? What guys can you bring in next year too? Like, I don't know. It depends on his rehabilitation. Is Rodgers done? Does he hang it up? I hope not. I hope we get one more year of him in New York and healthy and seeing what he can do. But I don't know, man. Like, it's that's tough. I just don't have them as a favorite to win that division or anything. Like, I don't think now. I think they're going to get blown out by Dallas again next week. It's going to be really rough. And Wilson, like, if he doesn't have his head on straight, he could end up getting hurt too next week. Like, Cowboys don't mess around.
I do think, and I'm sure we'll talk about it when on Friday's episode. I do think there's a world where the Jets hang around in that game because I think when you want to talk about Dallas defense, the Jets defense is still really good.
Yeah.
Like, so there's a world where that game is like the Buffalo game last night where Jets just keep hanging around, and, like, Wilson makes one play, and that's could be the difference.
That's
But
true. That could happen.
yeah. We have a new segment called the Minivan segment, where
Yeah.
we talk about things that we saw on Sunday that just made us uncomfortable.
Yep.
For you, what were the things that you saw? What were the two things that you saw that really made you feel uncomfortable?
I think it's got to be Seattle's offense and defense, right? For me, like it just, like I said before, like they added a lot during the draft. Like that, I think they're just a better team than they were last year, and I think they have a clear path in that division with 4 easy wins. Thinking about the Rams and Arizona and stuff, I think San Francisco, it's going to be tough to beat them, but for them to drop one of those easy 4-win games, like if you've got freebies, you can't give them up, right? Like, and
Yeah.
that is very concerning. Like Geno Smith looked like, I guess for lack of better words, like Zach Wilson. And like that's not good compared to what we saw out of Geno last year, where he was confident, making good decisions and stuff. So, I guess like if you want to talk about something that was good with Seattle, like Kenneth Walker played well. Like he had a good yard per carry average and stuff, but like they need to be able to run the ball effectively and turn on the passing game through that. And they just weren't able to. Like on defense, like they look terrible, man. They really did.
Yeah,
What about you?
Well, quickly, what concerns me with that is like if you're going to be a team that makes the playoffs and you have aspirations to make the playoffs and be a good team and to make a deep playoff run, you got to beat the bad teams.
Yeah,
you have to. Those are like I know there isn't a game that's a gimme, but like when you're playing the bad teams, you got to really take advantage of that.
I think that's what it is, right? Like make sure you homer on the soft ones, the easy pitches and stuff, right? Like I don't know. It just for me that was the one that really made me uncomfortable. What about you?
Honestly, what made me uncomfortable is that entire Giants-Cowboys game with what that Cowboys defense did to the Giants offense. Like the Giants had really high expectations this year. They made the playoffs last year. They kind of brought everyone back, so you kind of thought there was going to be some more consistency. You thought the team was going to just gel better together. And it was alarming what I watched. It was alarming.
Like what that does to a team psychologically when you get shut out, it just I don't know. Like I don't know where. Like what do? Do you just throw it out and you restart and you're just like, well, that happens sometimes. Like,
I think what's even more concerning about that is like Dallas came into Giant Stadium and did that to them on their home field, in front of their home crowd. It's the weekend that they're remembering 9/11. Like you just like. There was just a lot of things that were alarming about that Giants game that I didn't love. Like, I didn't love that there didn't seem to be any sense of urgency from the Giants. Like, they were just content going 3-and-out. It didn't really seem like they made many changes. Granted, the few changes they made I felt like didn't work because Dallas just, like I said this earlier, Dallas just seemed like they knew every play that the Giants were going to run and were in that backfield. But also, I think the other part that really scared me about that was how long they left Daniel Jones in.
Right. That's that just you got to be smart about it too, right? Like it's an 18-game season, right? Like they play 17, but it's an 18-week season. Like you got to be smart when you're doing stuff like that. And I don't know. I just kind of expected better from Daboll.
Me too. And there's getting shut out. And then there's getting beat 40-0. That's a level of that's a loss that sits with you for a while. That doesn't feel good.
Yeah.
Yep. And I'm curious to see if they bounce back. And especially against a division rival too. Mm-hmm. That's the part that it's not good.
Does not feel good.
Yeah. And the only other thing that made me a little uncomfortable is Kenny Pickett. I know we talked a lot about him and how he was going to be this guy that we thought might take that next step. Mm-hmm. And a little part of this, I know they played San Francisco, and that defense is just lights out. So maybe you throw that out, but like, man, he just didn't look good.
Yeah.
Like he just, and I get it. It felt like after his first, like he was like looking for his first read, and then after that, if you didn't find him, like he was just taking off. But the problem was, like by the time he decided he was going to take off, there were 3 guys in the backfield already waiting for him. Like,
yeah. Trust me, I started Najee Harris the other day, and like that was rough. Like through what, one half of football, he had 2 points. Like I mean,
yeah,
they just
whoa,
yeah, it was rough, man. Like really, really
yeah,
rough. So hopefully Pittsburgh's able to kind of right the ship this week and
right,
get back on track.
yeah. Yeah, which hey, we do have a Thursday night game. I think this is actually going to be a good Thursday night game.
Yeah.
I think the Lions game was a fun game. I think it was poorly played on parts on both ends, which was kind of weird. But this is Philadelphia versus Minnesota. Like this is going to be a good game. 2 good teams, a lot of good players, a good offense against a really good defense.
Mm-hmm.
Philly favored currently by 7 points, and the over/under is 48.5.
Yeah.
Who you got? Do you like that line? Do you like the over/under for that points total?
Yeah, I do like the line, right? Like I honestly think like if Minnesota didn't drop a dud like they did last week against Tampa Bay, like I'd probably think it would be a little bit closer. But
Yeah.
for me, like, okay, so you would mention like it's a good offense going against a good defense, but I also see it as Philly's good offense going against a very bad defense in Minnesota. And like
Yeah.
that's something that like, okay, so you're playing Baker Mayfield and the Bucks. Then you go into Philly, which is a very difficult place to play, and then you got to play against like an MVP candidate and Jalen Hurts. Like, you guys aren't ready. Like,
Yeah.
just
And
aren't ready.
I think too, I think too, what happens with Philly, as a Patriots fan, I watched that game, and they went into a pretty good environment. They're celebrating Tom Brady. Like, it's a big weekend for them.
Right.
Crowd was hyped for that game, and they did just enough to win.
Yeah.
And I think that I honestly don't think they took the Patriots seriously enough, because I think
Yeah.
that
Pats played better than what is Mac Jones trying to forge his case for MVP candidacy there?
that pick 6 he threw, I
Yeah.
was just nodding.
Yeah.
Golly.
But he threw what? Didn't he throw 3 touchdowns? Like, I mean, he had a good game besides that. It just, when it's on the line,
Yeah. I think though too with Philly, I think that was a wake up call for them.
Mhm.
I think it was okay, hey, we gotta play a lot better than that. Like offensively, Philly was fine. It seemed like they didn't really do a lot. I mean, they did some things, but it wasn't a ton to write home about, because again, it just kind of, it was a lot of 3 and outs from both teams.
Yeah.
I think Philly really turns it on this week, and I like the over under of the 48.5, and I think it's going to go over.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, and
I really, really like Philly's team in general. Like, okay, so like they didn't play great, but like sometimes even when you're not playing great, you got to win those games. And I think when you got a winner like Jalen Hurts on the team, like he's going to find ways to win consistently.
Yeah.
The good news is for Philly is that their defense is pretty good too. And like even seeing like, we talked about some of the rookies that had a good opening week. Like Jalen Carter was up there too. Like
Baby Rhino.
Yeah, like he really, like if you look back at his metrics in terms of like quarterback pressures, hits based off of his snaps, like no one's had a better season since like the beginning of 2019. Like I'm sorry, better season, better game since the beginning of 2019. Like that's a big deal for him, Like it really, I think he provides a very interesting dynamic to Philly, that if you've got guys that are great at rushing the passer, and you can do that late into the season, like you're just going to tear up other teams. You're going to tear them up because you're just recycling those pass rushers, right? Like they're coming in with fresh legs. They're rested. They tear it up.
And I think too, Philly's just been beating the pants off Minnesota for a couple seasons now.
Yeah.
it's just like over and over again this happens. And I honestly don't think this is any different. Like, I think Philly, I think Minnesota, they've got weapons, but like they have corners that can cover Addison and Jefferson. Like,
what does Minnesota have to do to win this game? Like that, I think that's like the big thing because like I'm trying to envision it, right? Like both of us are talking about it, saying like Philly's gonna stomp them, but like if Minnesota does win, like how did they win this game?
Honestly, they have to keep that Philadelphia offense off the field.
Yeah,
they do. They have to somehow wear that defense down because you saw a little bit of it with the Patriots on Sunday. They wore Philly down a little bit, and that's the key. Like, you can't keep going 3-and-out against them. You can't. You got to start having those 5, 6 minute drives to really kind of like take some time off the clock and make sure that the Philly offense doesn't get in any sort of rhythm.
They'll definitely make you pay for it if you don't. So
absolutely. I think that's the big key for them. But I just don't think they can do it. Yeah. That's the thing. I don't think you're running on the Philly defense.
Right.
And they have so many pass rushers that like you better get that ball out quick, or else it's going to be a long day. Yeah, it is going to be a long day.
Cousins could end up hurt.
Yeah,
that's not.
Yeah. What about you? What does this game come down to for you?
I think like you basically hit on it, right? Like Minnesota's got to run the ball, control the clock and stuff. They've got to be able to. Cousins needs to step into his throws, be confident, get Jefferson involved early, get him in a good rhythm and stuff. Make sure Hawkinson as well is popping off, right? Addison, mix in him as well. And they need to be able to get a few stops on defense, right? Like maybe they're able to do it, right? Like I don't think the path seems very likely because I ended up having Philly winning 35-24, and I think 24 is very generous for Minnesota. I think that's with Cousins dropping back on 3 downs and like throwing the ball.
I have this a little bit more of a blowout. I think it's Philly's going to win this game 38-17. I just think that they're just better in all facets of this game, and I think that's going to really show. And honestly, like an ugly win might be what Philly needed against the Patriots to kind of get themselves kind of revved up. And if they start getting revved up, it's Minnesota, I don't think has a chance. I really don't.
No, and I'll tell you, like, that's another team, like, if they gain their confidence early in Philly, like, we're looking at 2 excellent showdowns between them and Dallas this year because, like, with it being a divisional game, they're going to play them twice. Like, I can't wait to watch those games. Like, you're going to be looking at 2 very, very good teams playing each other. So,
yeah
very excited for it.
Me too. Yeah. Is there anything else you have before we kind of wrap up this episode? Boy, it was episode 5.
Yeah, I know. Jeez, we're cruising right along. I know this went a little bit longer and stuff, but like we're loving it. So we really any feedback you guys got, let us know. Like we're very excited to be doing this. So
so thanks for everybody for watching. Like I said, any feedback at all, please do not hesitate to reach out to us. Or like Willie said before, you got any fantasy football questions, we'll answer them.
Yeah.
We'll give it a giddy old college try. Between the 2 of us, we can figure it out.
Absolutely.
But as always, thanks for listening. Email us at thepulsewa@gmail.com. Make sure you smash that like and subscribe button for us.
Absolutely.
And Willie, where can they find you on Twitter?
Oh, you know me, Willie Creeman FF on X, right? X.
Yeah,
we don't want to fight Elon yet, but
I will. I'll fight him.
Yeah, no. Oh man, listen, man, it was great. Another great episode. Love to be doing it with you, bro.
Absolutely, a great episode as well, and I love doing this with you, and I love you, man. Have a good one.
You take care.